to do it.
Ведь сторона, которая применяет ядерное оружие, что он хочет?
The side who are using nuclear weapons, what do they want? They want to destroy the enemy, to gain the advantage. But by doing that, they force the enemy to use nuclear weapons too. So the war will escalate to a level of general nuclear war. This is the dialectic of war and the structure of armed forces nowadays. In the last war, we didn't have nuclear weapons, so they weren't used. But now we have nuclear weapons. And no side will accept defeat before it uses all the weapons it has.
All the weapons it has. There are now 10,000 nuclear warheads in Europe, and if the dialectics of war mean anything, it probably won't be very long after the first shot until they come into use. And from battlefield nuclear weapons to city killers is a very short step.
The assumption that you can control a nuclear war is pure fantasy. From the moment the first nuclear weapons released on a European battlefield, you open Pandora's box, and you don't know what's coming out. But one thing you can count on is that there will be a very high probability of early and steep escalation into the strategic warlord exchange that nobody wants. So you mustn't use the things.
Even before the escalation starts, the soldiers will find the nuclear battlefield an uninhabitable place. The old game will be over.
If they started using nuclear weapons, what kind of casualties?
The mind boggles at the thought. I mean, we know what difficulties we had over the last 2 days with the sort of throughput we had, which was only up to about 50 an hour. But when you're talking about thousands and thousands of casualties, one could only, I think, treat those which were simply treated, immediately treated, and with a very high chance of survival, which would be very much the minority.
The rest just
would, if they didn't perish straight away, would perish very shortly afterwards. Because the treatment for radiation, high doses of radiation, well, there is no treatment. But if you start using them, we lose. We all lose.
Yes, I know we do.
Yeah.
For 30 years now, the people of this village have watched the tanks roll up towards the border each autumn and come back again a couple of weeks later. These exercises have become a kind of ritualized activity, and every year the ritual gets a little bit more expensive and a little bit more bizarre. We've turned Central Europe into a kind of game park where we're trying to preserve an endangered species, conventional war, because we're desperately trying to stave off the alternative, a return to total war. Nuclear total war. These soldiers aren't fools. They know perfectly well that the efficient, modern, cost-effective way to stop tanks isn't to set up an elaborate killing zone. You simply drop a nuclear bomb on them. Better yet, you drop nuclear weapons on the cities where the people who built the tanks live. That's total war in the 20th century tradition. But if we fight another total war like that, it's not just those soldiers who die. You and I die too, and pretty well everybody we ever met.
If these soldiers ever have to go into battle, we'll order them to fight a conventional war for as long as possible. The problem is that this distinction we've created between conventional and nuclear war is in the end an artificial distinction, and probably a pretty flimsy one. If either side started to win a conventional war, the other would bring out its nuclear weapons. But a stalemate would also bring strong pressures to escalate.
So, win, lose, or draw, conventional war in Europe leads back towards nuclear war, probably in a matter of only a couple of weeks. And once the first battlefield nuclear weapon has been fired in Europe, We've passed the last clearly defined barrier to nuclear war, and we're heading straight for the Holocaust.